Give up your seat. We don't upgrade people like you." The words cut through the polished silence of the private jet like a blade across velvet. Captain Elaine Morrow didn't whisper them. She barked them, standing in the narrow aisle of the Falcon 7X as if she owned the air inside it. Her eyes didn't meet Amara Kingston's as she said it. They slid right past her, like she was invisible, like she was baggage, behind Elaine. Roland Pierce shifted smugly, one hand resting on the seat's headrest, the seat Amara had just buckled herself into. "That seat's mine now," he added with a smirk, tossing a folded paper toward the cockpit crew. It wasn't a boarding pass. It was a check, handwritten, signed, a bribe so blatant it didn't even pretend to be subtle. Before we dive deeper into this story, I want to know where you're watching from. Go ahead, leave a comment below. And while you're here, hit subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Now, back to Amara. The woman in that seat wasn't a lost traveler or a misplaced guest. She was the reason the jet was on the tarmac at all. Amara Kingston, 44 years old, CEO of Kingston Ventures. Net worth? Just shy of $13 billion. Her soft gray sweater and tailored slacks might have looked unassuming, but the mind behind them had built a fintech empire, then took to the skies. And now, she was being told to move, not because of a mistake, but because of a transaction, because a white man in a luxury watch flashed money, and a white captain with a chip on her shoulder decided to serve bias with boarding instructions. Amara looked up, calm, steady. Her voice didn't rise. "I'm in 1A. Captain, as ticketed, as confirmed." Elaine folded her arms. "It's voided. That seat's been reassigned." "By whom?" "By me," Elaine said. "Per flight command." Roland chuckled and leaned against the galley door. "You heard her. Sweetheart, this ain't coach. And people like you, you don't belong up here." That's when Caden Reed, a 27-year-old travel content creator in seat 2B, quietly lifted his phone. No zoom, no angles, just raw footage, a captain, a passenger, and a humiliation broadcast in real time. 2 hashtags, #justice, #equity. Maya Torres, a 40-year-old civil rights advocate seated nearby, grabbed Caden's arm and whispered, "Don't post it yet. Let her speak first." But it was too late. The phone buzzed in Caden's palm. Uploaded, live, and rising. Amara stayed seated, one hand resting lightly on her knee, the other clutching her phone. "Lena," she said calmly, her assistant on the line. "Record this. All of it." "Already recording, ma'am," Lena replied. "And I've sent alerts to internal counsel." Roland reached forward, snatched Amara's tablet off her lap, and tossed it toward the cockpit bulkhead. "You won't need that where you're going." Lucas Gray, a 31-year-old vlogger known for exposing luxury frauds, narrowed his eyes. "That's assault," he said. "You can't just grab her stuff." Elaine turned. "Sir, stay out of this." "No," Lucas said. "I won't. Because what you're doing isn't just wrong. It's illegal." Amara slowly stood, calm, dignified. She picked up her tablet. The screen had cracked. Her eyes hadn't. "Captain Morrow," she said, her voice as level as a measured wind. "You've just made a mistake that'll cost this airline its name." Elaine scoffed. "You think I'm afraid of your bluff?" "No," Amara replied. "You're afraid of the truth." At 21, Amara had been denied access to an aviation leadership conference. The door shut in her face by a white executive who claimed her presence wouldn't match the branding. It didn't crush her. It clarified her. By 38, she had acquired majority control of Kingston Aviation Holdings and launched her first fleet of private jets. Today, at 44, she sat aboard one of them, Horizon Star Charter's flagship Dassault Falcon 7X, and was being asked to move for a man who paid to play. Elaine's voice rang again. You've been unlisted from this flight due to failure to verify elite credentials. My credentials? Amara raised a brow. You're looking at them. Security will escort you shortly, Elaine said. Zoe Quinn, a 28-year-old flight attendant, appeared beside her. She looked nervous. Captain, she whispered, she's listed in the manifest. Then mark her removed, Elaine snapped. Verbally, Caden stood now, too. You're doubling down on camera. Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. Let the moment breathe. Lucas stepped toward Amara. Ma'am, if I may, we've all seen this before, but never like this. Amara gave a slight nod. Speak. They're trying to erase your presence with paper, Lucas said, but your presence is already power. Roland scoffed. Her power's paper thin. Amara tilted her head. Your bribe's still in your briefcase. Mr. Pierce. You've got nothing on me. Lucas, already furious, spotted the corner of the folded check poking out of Roland's case. He reached forward, opened it slightly, and pulled out the note. He read aloud, To Elaine, for seat 1A, $7,500. No questions. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Zoe's eyes darted. Elaine's nostrils flared. Roland lurched forward, trying to grab it back, but Lucas held it up. You bought her seat, Roland growled. This proves nothing. Amara didn't smile, didn't smirk. She simply said, This proves everything. The silence that followed was no longer quiet. It was charged. Dense, Caden whispered. This is going viral. It already is, Maya murmured. Amara leaned slightly toward Elaine. Captain Morrow, you've just sacrificed your license at the altar of bias. Elaine crossed her arms. You're all bark. No, Amara said softly. I'm the buyer. She tapped her phone. Lena, connect me to Tessa. On standby, Lena replied. Should I proceed with protocol? Yes, Amara said. We go legal now. Zoe stepped back, clearly shaken. Maya looked at her. Is this what you signed up for? Zoe didn't answer. Her silence said enough. Degraded by prejudice? Amara's voice echoed louder now, clear, unflinching. Stand tall, log it, share it, act, let them know. Our dignity isn't negotiable. The cabin didn't cheer. Not yet. They were still in that silence, that breath before the thunder. But it was coming. The storm was coming. Elaine didn't blink. Stephen, log her as unauthorized and prepare an incident report for passenger fraud. First Officer Stephen Holt, standing just behind the flight deck door, hesitated. His clipboard trembled slightly in his left hand. Captain, he started, but Elaine's voice cracked through the pressurized air like a whip. Do it! Stephen looked directly at Amara now, not as a subordinate following orders, but as a man suddenly uncertain of the ground he stood on. Passenger Amara Kingston is not on the verified elite roster, he said, the words catching in his throat. You're calling me a fraud? Amara asked. She hadn't moved from her place near seat 1A, but her tone had dropped an octave, low and controlled. You're accusing me of stealing my own seat? Roland, still leaning nearby with smugness plastered across his face, laughed. Didn't take long to find out she's a phony. Should have checked her credit first. This isn't a boarding issue, Elaine added, stepping forward. It's a criminal deception. Zoe Quinn, the 28-year-old flight attendant, shifted nervously between them, then looked at Stephen. She's on the manifest, Zoe whispered, almost like she was afraid of her own voice. Elaine turned sharply. Strike that. She's not. She never was, Zoe faltered. Captain, that's not true. Are you contradicting me? Elaine snapped. Do you want to be written up? Zoe opened her mouth, then closed it. Stephen, still visibly pale, cleared his throat. Captain, I think we should pause here. This is escalating. It's not escalating, Elaine replied, turning back to Amara. It's resolving. You're going to disembark now, or security will handle it. Call them, Amara said, not flinching. And you'll see who really leaves this aircraft. Her phone was still in her hand, the line with Lena still open. Lena, record Captain Morrow's accusations, word for word. Recording, Lena confirmed, in seat 3A. Lucas Gray spoke up, his voice louder this time. You're making a mistake, Captain, a big one, and we're all witnesses. This is not your concern, Elaine barked. It is, Lucas replied, because what you're doing isn't just discriminatory, it's vile. We follow FAA procedures, Elaine said flatly, and that includes verifying passenger identity. So why not ask for ID? Lucas shot back. Why skip that and accuse her outright? Amara slowly turned to Zoe. You checked me in, didn't you? Zoe nodded faintly. Yes, ma'am. Did I present ID? Yes. And did I match the manifest? Yes. Say it louder. Lucas urged. Zoe looked around the cabin, then back at Amara. Yes. You were verified. Thank you, Amara said. Now let's talk about the real fraud here. She turned to Roland. How much did you pay? Roland didn't answer. 7,500, Lucas said, waving the bribery note he'd found in Roland's briefcase. Handwritten, signed, and dated. Elaine stepped forward. That's hearsay. It's proof, Lucas snapped. It's extortion disguised as seating preference. Stephen, Elaine ordered. Call airport security now. Stephen didn't move. His eyes were locked on Amara. And in that moment, his voice cracked. Captain, I can't. This isn't right. Elaine froze. Excuse me? She's not lying, Stephen said. And you know it. You're disobeying a direct order, she hissed. Then file a report, he replied, setting the clipboard on a side table. But I won't lie for you. Amara nodded slightly, her expression unchanged. Stephen, if you'd like to salvage your name, you'll cooperate fully when my legal team reaches out. I will, Stephen said quietly. You still have time to make this right. Maya Torres added from her seat. But not much, at that. Zoe suddenly looked up, her hands still fidgeting with the edge of a service napkin. Captain, she said quietly, I need to tell the truth. Elaine didn't respond. Her jaw tightened. Zoe swallowed. You trained me to profile non-white passengers. You said it was standard to flag them early. The cabin fell silent. Even Caden stopped recording. Elaine turned slowly. What did you just say? You told me to monitor certain passengers more closely, based on how they looked, Zoe said. You said it was subtle safety protocol. You're misremembering, Elaine snapped. No, Zoe said, louder now. I'm not. Amara stood slowly. I want every passenger to remember this moment, she said. Remember who spoke and who stayed silent. Lucas looked around the cabin. Every phone's got a camera. You think this won't surface? Elaine hissed. You'll all regret this. No, Amara replied. Only you will. Zoe looked at her. I'm sorry, ma'am. Then help fix it, Amara said. Tell the full truth. Zoe nodded. She trained us to report certain passengers as non-priority if they didn't look the part, especially women of color. Maya shook her head. And that's your protocol? Elaine turned, finally snapping. This is my aircraft, and I run it my way. Not anymore, Amara said calmly. Not for much longer. You can't do anything, Elaine shot back. You're just a passenger. That's where you're wrong, Amara replied, tapping her phone screen. Lena, prepare the statement. Begin internal file retrieval, and connect me to Tessa. On it, Lena replied. Amara, Stephen said, his voice barely above a whisper. I deleted your seat reservation. Elaine told me to... That silence returned. Not emptiness, but weight. What? Lucas muttered. You what? She told me to erase it after the manifest was locked, Stephen said. Said it was a rebalancing measure. So you sabotaged her? Caden said. So you could gift the seat to Roland? It was wrong, Stephen said. I know that now. Elaine tried to cut him off. He misunderstood, but Stephen turned to her. Don't. I'm done lying. Then step aside, Amara said. You've helped enough. Roland finally stood. I don't care who she is. I paid for this seat, and I'm not moving. That's not how this ends, Lucas replied. That's how it begins. Amara's voice didn't waver. You bribed your way to a seat that never belonged to you. And now, the world is watching. What are you going to do? Roland asked with a smirk. Buy the airline? Amara smiled faintly for the first time. Exactly. Elaine stared at Amara like she'd misheard her, like the words couldn't possibly be real. But Amara didn't blink, didn't back down. She simply stared back, her jaw firm, her posture upright, her tone steady as she repeated it. Slower this time. I said I'm buying the airline. And suddenly the tension in the cabin shifted, not just heavy now, but charged, electric. As if the plane itself knew the weight of the moment. As if every passenger on board realized the power had flipped mid-air though they hadn't even left the ground. And Elaine, still clinging to the illusion of authority, laughed, sharp and brittle. You're bluffing, she said, her voice rising in pitch. This is fantasy. But her eyes betrayed her, flicking nervously toward Stephen, toward Zoe, toward Derek Vance. The 35-year-old uniformed security officer just now boarding the cabin through the side stairway with a quiet authority of his own. What's going on here? He asked, surveying the scene, arms folded, reading the tension instantly as Stephen stepped back and pointed toward Amara, faltering. Captain Morrow requested her removal, and Derek raised a brow. For what? Elaine cut in. Passenger is unlisted and refused to comply with command. But Zoe's voice, unsteady, trembling, but firm, cut through the noise. That's not true. She's listed, she was cleared, and she's being profiled. Derek turned slowly to Elaine. Is this true, Captain? But Elaine didn't answer, not directly. Instead, she gestured at Roland, who was still smugly seated, waving his bribed priority pass like a backstage wristband. She doesn't belong here, Roland snapped. I paid to be here. I expect service. And Amara, still seated, still poised, lifted her eyes toward Derek and said with no drama, no fanfare, just absolute precision. He bribed for my seat. Stephen deleted my reservation, and Elaine authorized it. Derek's face hardened as he looked to Stephen, who didn't deny it, didn't even try, only whispered. I did. I shouldn't have. And Amara stood slowly, never raising her voice, never needing to, because the cabin had fallen utterly silent, the tension so thick it nearly swallowed the air. Mr. Vance, she said, her voice smooth as steel. Before you decide who gets removed, you should know I've already contacted my lawyer, and legal action is underway. My name is Amara Kingston, CEO of Kingston Ventures, and I am in the process of acquiring Horizon Star charters. And at that, a collective inhale swept through the cabin. Even Maya, even Lucas, even Caden stopped filming just long enough to absorb the shock. This wasn't theater. This wasn't ego. This was execution. And Elaine's face blanched for the first time as she snapped, You're lying! You're nobody! But Amara didn't flinch. That was your mistake, assuming my presence needed explanation. She turned toward the galley, dialed again. Lena, confirm status. Lena's voice came through calm, controlled, efficient. Tessa is preparing legal action. We've documented the seating record, passenger list, and Zoe's verbal statement. Derek looked at Zoe. Is that accurate? And Zoe nodded, tears now welling at the corners of her eyes. Yes, sir, she said. Captain Morrow instructed me to falsify her status. Derek stepped back, hand to his radio. I need internal counsel. But before he could speak again, Roland leaned forward. This is absurd. I'm a paying passenger. And Lucas exploded. With a check. With a bribe. You're not a client. You're an accessory to fraud. Roland stood sharply, pointing at Amara. You think you can intimidate us with money? You think buying a seat makes you royalty? No, Amara replied, voice steady. But owning the plane makes me your employer. And Caden whispered, Oh my God, just as Derek raised a hand to calm the room. Everyone remain seated, he said. This situation is under review. But Elaine wasn't finished. Not yet. She's threatening us, she said to Derek. She's manipulating the cabin. And Amara, calm as ever, tapped her phone again. Lena, put Tessa on. And moments later, Tessa Vaughn's voice, clear, professional, unwavering, echoed into the cabin from Amara's speaker. Elaine Morrow, Stephen Holt, Zoe Quinn, and Derek Vance. You are being named in a federal discrimination complaint to be filed within the hour under violation of passenger civil rights and FAA ethical codes. Derek's face changed, hardening into stone. I was just called in, he said, but Tessa continued. All activity since boarding is logged, including deletion of reservations, verbal profiling, and witness statements. Elaine laughed again, desperate now. This is ridiculous. This won't stand. But Stephen suddenly stepped forward, hands raised. She's right, he said, voice cracking. I deleted it. I went along with it because Elaine said she'd report me if I didn't comply. Amara stepped closer, eye to eye now with Elaine. Captain Morrow, you're not just biased, you're reckless, and you've endangered this entire company with your arrogance. You don't own it yet, Elaine hissed, but Amara's eyes didn't move. Then let me correct that. She turned again. Lena, execute phase 2. Begin formal acquisition proceedings. Lena confirmed instantly. Moving forward, ma'am. All systems green. Roland looked around, confused now. Wait, you're serious? Deadly, Amara said. And then, with perfect calm, she stepped toward Derek and whispered just loud enough for the others to hear. Escort him out. He has no seat, no pass, and no authority. And Derek paused, then nodded. Mr. Pierce, you'll need to disembark, now. This is insane, Roland shouted. But Derek didn't flinch, and 2 ground staff appeared just outside the cabin, waiting, arms crossed, as Roland threw up his hands and growled. You'll regret this, and Amara, now turning back to the stunned passengers, simply said, No, I'll rebuild this. And then she turned to the crew still huddled near the front galley and added, Starting with all of you. The cabin held its breath as the storm cleared just long enough for Lucas to speak. That was justice. And Amara gave him a look that didn't gloat, didn't mock, just acknowledged what he'd said was right. And then she looked around the jet and said, None of this is over, but it's begun. Elaine's voice trembled with something new now, not power, not control, but fear barely hidden beneath stubborn pride as she pointed toward the jet's exit door and shouted, Derek, remove her from my aircraft now. But Derek didn't move, not immediately, because the chain of command had shifted, and everyone in the cabin could feel it. Like the weight of the cabin pressure had suddenly redistributed. Elaine no longer stood at the helm. She stood exposed, cracking, clinging to authority like driftwood in a rising tide. And yet Derek stepped forward anyway, swallowing hard, trying to look impartial. Ms. Kingston, I have been asked to escort you from the aircraft, he said formally, though his eyes faltered, unsure, searching hers for resistance, and Amara gave him none, because she had already won this moment, and she knew it. Instead, she simply looked toward her phone and said calmly, "Tessa, you're hearing this, correct?" And from the speaker, Tessa's voice rang steady, loud and clear. "Any forced removal will constitute retaliatory action during active legal review." And Derek paused again, caught between duty and legal liability. But Elaine hissed, "She's a security threat. She disrupted the crew." To which Amara raised a single brow. "Your threats are unraveling, Captain, and your lies are being archived." She glanced toward Lena's live call. "Lena, timestamp this." And Lena responded instantly. "Done, ma'am, filed under 09.18. And just as Derek opened his mouth to speak again, another voice cut across the tension like a blade. Imani Wells, the 25-year-old black jewelry designer seated in the rear, who until now had remained quiet, simply observing, absorbing, but now rose with visible emotion. "Captain Morrow accused me of looking suspicious when I boarded," Imani said, her voice shaking with hurt and rage. "She made me open my purse for a random check while 2 other passengers walked past unchecked." The room shifted, eyes turning sharply, murmurs stirring, and Elaine turned, face flushed. "That never happened. She's lying." But Imani raised her hand. "I have the time-stamped video on my phone," she said. "I recorded the whole thing because I didn't feel safe." And now Maya Torres stood too, voice calm but resolute. "There is a pattern here, and it's no longer invisible." Derek looked visibly shaken now, one hand gripping the back of the cockpit door for balance, and Stephen stepped forward, face pale. "She's telling the truth. I saw it. I didn't stop it." And then Zoe, shaken but no longer silent, added softly, "She was flagged by Elaine during pre-boarding," and Lucas let out a low whistle. "How deep does this go?" Amara turned, eyes focused on Derek. "Mr. Vance, are you still prepared to remove me, or are you ready to confront the truth?" Derek didn't answer, but he didn't touch her either. Instead, he stepped back, hands lowered, face set like stone, and Amara turned to Zoe, voice low but unwavering. "Tell the cabin what Captain Morrow instructed you to do." And Zoe nodded, trembling. "She told me to note certain passengers as non-priority without cause, just based on how they looked, told me it was part of a safety-first culture. And now the shock hit the passengers like a second wave. Realization, revulsion, the slow understanding that they hadn't just witnessed a bad decision, but a system designed to humiliate quietly, efficiently, until someone like Amara refused to be quiet, refused to be efficient, refused to leave, and as if the moment hadn't already cracked wide open, Derek finally spoke, voice dry, tight. "Captain, I need to ask you something." Elaine looked at him, guarded. "What?" And Derek inhaled slowly. "Did you or did you not instruct staff to attend closed-door sessions last fall labeled as Flight Environment Threat Profiling, ones that emphasized specific visual identifiers for elevated scrutiny?" Elaine blinked, hesitated, then scoffed. "That was internal training," she said quickly, "for cabin safety." But Derek was shaking his head now, as if a veil had been lifted. "Those were your words, not corporate protocol. I checked." And Lucas whispered to Maya. "She ran her own bias seminars," and Maya whispered back. "She ran a script." And Amara folded her arms and said to Derek, "There it is, the truth in plain view." And then calmly she raised her phone again and said, "Lena, proceed to asset review and activate contingency clause Delta." And Lena, without pause, replied, "Contingency clause Delta is live. We are green across legal and acquisition." and Elaine lost what little composure she had left. "You think you can come on my flight, humiliate my team, and buy your way into command?" And Amara answered, "I didn't humiliate your team. You did that by yourself." And Roland, still standing awkwardly to the side, suddenly shouted, "This is a circus. I demand to be taken off this plane." And Lucas replied, "That's the first honest thing you've said." And Caden, who had been recording again, caught Roland's exit as Derek opened the hatch, allowing him to storm down the air stairs in silence. And Amara turned back to the rest of the cabin. "Let it be known, this is no longer Horizon Star's flight. It's the beginning of Freedom Air." And a beat later, Lena's voice echoed one last confirmation. "All acquisition files are in motion. Ma'am, the terminal office is ready for final sign-off." Amara stood tall in the aisle, her presence no longer questioned, her authority no longer hidden. As she turned slowly to face the very crew that had tried to erase her, Elaine, Stephen, Zoe, and Derek, all of them standing stiff, exposed, beneath the fluorescent cabin lighting that no longer shielded their authority but revealed their failures. "You want to know who I am?" she said, voice measured but loud enough to carry across every row. "I am Amara Kingston, CEO of Kingston Ventures, founder of Kingston Aviation Holdings, majority shareholder in 8 private charter networks, and in less than 20 minutes, I will be the owner of Horizon Star Charters." Her voice didn't waver, didn't rush, didn't plead. It landed like a verdict. Elaine took a half step back, her mouth parting but no words coming out, as Amara reached into her blazer, withdrew a slim folder, and held it aloft. "This," she said, "is the letter of intent, signed, validated, filed." The cabin was utterly silent. Maya Torres looked from Amara to Elaine and whispered, "That's what power used right feels like." Amara turned to the passengers now, her tone softening but not losing a shred of command. "To every person on this plane who was ignored, dismissed, degraded, I see you. And today, I'm changing more than seats. I'm changing the system." Then she pressed a button on her phone and said, "Lena, please confirm." Lena's voice came through steady, professional. "Acquisition is in motion. Legal documents have been submitted. Financials verified. Ownership expected to transfer within the hour. And the lawsuit against Horizon Star and its employees is being filed now." A soft gasp escaped from Zoe, who now looked at Amara not with fear, but with a strange, broken relief. Stephen sat down on the edge of a jump seat, head in his hands. Elaine tried one last time to salvage herself, voice cracking. "This is revenge. This is personal." Amara turned to her, calm and resolute. "No, Captain. This is accountability. This is what it looks like when silence ends." Then, without drama, without pause, she said, "Effective immediately, I am suspending you, Elaine Morrow, and you, Stephen Holt, Zoe Quinn, Derek Vance, all of you, pending full review by our new internal oversight panel." Elaine stumbled back, grasping the seat edge for support. Stephen didn't look up. Zoe nodded once. Derek stepped aside. Amara stepped forward. "Your access badges will be deactivated. You are not to re-enter Horizon Star property without clearance. And Roland Pierce," she added, turning her head slightly, though he was already at the foot of the air stairs. "You are banned from all future flights under Freedom Air Elite. Permanently." The moment held, suspended in a strange calm, until Lucas finally broke it, clapping once, then twice, then rising to his feet and saying, "That's what leadership looks like." And other passengers followed suit, not wild applause, but something deeper, recognition, reverence, relief. Then Amara raised her hand once more. "There's one more thing," she said. "Because power without purpose is empty, and justice without healing is incomplete. She turned toward the front, her voice clear, unwavering. Today, I'm announcing the Freedom Sky Fund, a $30 million initiative to create scholarships, training programs, and equity-based hiring pipelines for young aviators from marginalized communities. The cabin fell still again, but this time it wasn't from tension. It was from awe. Maya's eyes brimmed. Imani covered her mouth. Caden put his phone down, not out of disinterest, but because he realized some moments don't need to be filmed. They need to be felt. Amara continued, "This fund will not only address the damage done here, it will prevent it from repeating, in every flight, on every aircraft, in every decision, because our skies should lift people, not divide them." Just then, Zoe, through tears, stepped forward. "Ma'am," she whispered, "I have something to show you." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper, slightly crumpled, but carefully preserved. "It's the bias complaint log," she said. "Captain Morrow asked me to destroy it months ago, but I couldn't." Amara took it gently, unfolded it, scanned it. 8 incidents, she murmured. 8 ignored. Tessa's voice rang out from Amara's phone. "That document just strengthened the federal case and will be entered into the civil suit. Thank you, Ms. Quinn." Zoe nodded slowly. "I was afraid, but I couldn't be silent anymore." Amara looked her in the eye. "Then don't be—" She held up the paper. "Because this is how they fall, and we rise." Lena's voice returned, firm, proud. "Final contract language has been delivered. Ma'am, they're ready for your signature at the terminal." "Let's finish it," Amara said. She looked once more around the cabin, not for approval, not for applause, but for accountability. "The skies are changing," she said quietly, "and this seat will never again be sold to silence." At precisely 09:45 a.m., Amara stepped off the aircraft into the private terminal's executive suite, glass walls, sleek white furniture, and a single chrome desk at the center already prepared with a contract folder, a leather-bound pen, and 2 waiting representatives from Horizon Star's ownership board, neither of whom dared to speak as she entered. She didn't need an entourage or an announcement. Her presence filled the room. Lena stood beside her, tablet in hand, confirming. "All documents reviewed, legal, financial, regulatory, all terms locked. They've been notified of personnel suspensions and incoming audits. We're ready." Amara gave a single nod, approached the desk, opened the folder, and signed in one smooth motion, first name, last name, title. When she looked up, the air had changed. Horizon Star Charters, with its history of exclusion and unchecked bias, no longer existed. In its place stood Freedom Air Elite. The transfer wasn't just a transaction, it was a transformation. Amara turned to Lena. "Notify the team, and begin the press hold for noon release." Lena tapped the screen. "Already scheduled, ma'am." Minutes later, Amara stepped back onto the plane. The same aircraft where her legitimacy had been questioned, now legally hers. The air felt lighter. The silence wasn't tense, it was respectful. She stood at the front of the aisle, the entire cabin facing her. "This jet is no longer Horizon Star's property," she announced. "You are now passengers on the inaugural flight of Freedom Air Elite." A murmur of disbelief gave way to applause, restrained but powerful. "But this rebrand," she continued, "means nothing unless the culture changes with it. That's why I'm launching the Freedom Wing Initiative. Real reform, real oversight, and zero tolerance for bias in any form. Every staff member will undergo values-based training. Every complaint will be reviewed by a new equity board with rotating community advocates, and every flight will reflect the dignity of every passenger on board." In the rear galley, Elaine stood frozen, Stephen leaned against the wall, pale. Zoe looked down, tearful but relieved. Derek sat in silence. Then Amara added, "To those who participated in discrimination, your roles are now under independent review. Those who concealed bias will not remain in our skies." At that moment, Stephen stepped forward again, his hands open, voice low. "I have something to confess," he said, eyes flicking toward Elaine. "There was more than the deleted reservation. There was a crew-level attempt to block the acquisition. We were told by Elaine that if Kingston Ventures took over, we'd all be replaced. So she circulated false financials, internal reports, hoping to discourage investors. I saw the edits. I didn't report them." Elaine's face turned white. "You absolute coward," she hissed. "That was internal speculation." "No," Stephen said, firmer now. "That was sabotage, and it went too far." Amara didn't react with outrage. She didn't raise her voice. "Thank you for your honesty," she said. "But that doesn't excuse your silence." She turned to Lena. "Add that to the compliance file." Lena nodded. "Already flagged." Then Zoe, still near the jump seat, looked up. "There's more," she said softly. "Elaine asked me to delay certain complaint filings. She told me not to log them into the main system, just to shred them. I have the originals. I didn't destroy them." Amara approached her gently. "You kept them?" Zoe nodded. "I couldn't live with hiding it." Amara placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then help us rebuild. This initiative needs voices that know where the cracks were." Zoe, tearfully, agreed. Elaine collapsed into the seat nearest the galley, her command stripped away, her voice lost in the sound of something greater, something healing. Amara turned one last time to the passengers. "Today isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. And no amount of silence will ever again outweigh the truth." The cabin remained quiet, not out of tension, but reverence, as the truth finally settled in full. Elaine sat slumped in the jump seat, eyes vacant, stripped of authority and title. Stephen, subdued, said nothing more. Zoe remained close to the galley, clutching the envelope of hidden complaints like a confession and a commitment all at once. Derek, seated near the front, looked down at his hands, silent in reflection. Around them, the passengers had returned to their seats, but no one resumed casual conversation. This was no longer a flight, it was a reckoning. Amara stepped forward once more, standing in the aisle like a conductor guiding not just a crew, but a cultural shift. "There are consequences," she said, her voice warm but resolute. "And we do not sweep them away. Elaine, Stephen, Zoe, Derek, you will be referred to the FAA's Ethics Division. Each of you will be subject to compliance reviews. This is not retaliation. It is due process." Derek nodded slightly. Zoe said nothing. Stephen whispered, "Understood." But Elaine, still clinging to some shard of the past, mumbled, "This wasn't supposed to go this far." Amara turned her gaze to her. "That's what people always say when the curtain falls." Then she addressed the passengers. "As of today, Roland Pierce's firm is under audit by 3 regulatory boards. His exit from this aircraft is not the end, but the beginning of his accountability. We've submitted documentation of his bribe to the Department of Transportation. This isn't personal. It's precedent." Lucas leaned forward from his seat, voice low. "You just rewrote the entire rule book." Amara gave a soft nod. "Not rewritten, revealed." She paced slowly now, her voice steady. Freedom Air Elite will be the first private aviation company in the country to implement zero-tolerance bias protocols tied to real-time flight accountability, complaint visibility, and equitable hiring benchmarks across all flight staff, maintenance, and operations teams. That's not just policy. That's culture. Maya wiped away a tear, smiling through it. I didn't think I'd live to see this. Amara looked at her. Now help me make sure others do. She then turned to Imani, who had quietly endured her own profiling earlier. Ms. Wells, Amara said, on behalf of Freedom Air Elite, you are being offered a complimentary executive charter, any destination, any time, because the way you were treated today was unacceptable, and because change must be immediate, not promised. Imani blinked, surprised. Her voice cracked. Thank you. That means more than I can say. Amara smiled softly. Let your next flight carry peace, not pain. Then she lifted her phone again and said, Lena, please issue formal statements to all passengers documenting this incident. Transparency must begin here. Lena's voice came through calm as ever. Already done. Ma'am, each passenger will receive a full transcript and follow-up survey from our interim equity board. Amara paused then. Glancing toward the window, a jet taxied slowly past in the distance, bearing the old Horizon Star logo, faint, outdated, soon to be replaced. Symbols matter, she said, but substance matters more, and today, the substance is this. No one will ever again be asked to prove they belong while seated on one of our flights. Just then, a new voice came through the onboard comms, an older man, voice raspy but clear. Ms. Kingston, this is Harold Deakins, former Horizon Star captain. I flew under this banner for 34 years, and I need to say something before I retire. I buried complaint after complaint about racial profiling because I was told it would destabilize crew morale. I knew what Elaine was doing, and I stayed quiet. I see now that silence is cowardice. Amara closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the weight of the confession. Captain Deakins, she said gently, your words matter now. Let this be your legacy, not the silence, but the truth. Lucas whispered. Even the ghosts are speaking now. Amara turned back to the cabin. Let this moment echo, because this story doesn't end with a headline or a lawsuit. It ends with a new standard, and it begins again with every flight we take from here forward. Caden, finally lifting his phone again, recorded one last clip. Amara standing strong at the aisle, passengers behind her, a broken airline reborn in real time. Liberation, she said softly, doesn't come from noise. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to move when someone tries to take your seat. And as the aircraft doors prepared to open once more, a new dawn had already arrived in the sky above them. If you've ever been told you don't belong, this story is for you. Share it, subscribe, and never give up your seat again.